Hello, 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 and welcome to our first Chopin talk of the day. My name is DISTLER, and I'm one of the co-hosts for the Chopin talk during the 19th Chopin competition here in Warsaw. And it's been a very exciting few days hearing so many pianists and approaching very similar repertoire in quite diverse ways, and it's just been so intriguing and exciting for me to listen and to compare and to contrast all of these performances by such gifted young pianists or youngish pianists. Well, everybody's young at heart here. I would like to introduce the four artists who are sitting with me. On my right is ANTONI Kłeczek, and we just met, and I'm so happy you're here. Welcome.
Thank you.
And sitting next to him is Gong, who played yesterday as well, and my good friend here, Jack Gao from New York, and I'm so happy to see you. We saw each other in New York in August. And another friend from Italy, ALBERTO Ferro, is sitting over here, and you played yesterday. I'm so happy you're here. Molto piacere for those Italian listeners, but I'm not going to show off my very bad Italian skills. But I'm going to ask some questions first, but what I would love to be talking about is what I think is so interesting is the four of you played the third ballade, the ballade number 3 in A flat, opus 47, and you all have that piece in common. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But first, Alberto, you played here in the 2021 competition, and I want to ask how it feels returning and what is different for you this time?
Oh, I feel so many differences because, of course, that period it was the pandemic, so we were all with the masks. We all had the COVID test.
Yeah.
It was a very cold period, also for characters of everyone. Also keeping the distance, you know. But nonetheless, the competition was held, of course, because. It's very important to keep the tradition and in every period. And for this time, till now, I feel much warm in general from people, the atmosphere as well, the environment.
Jack, I'd like to ask you about what differences you feel in terms of competing here in Warsaw, comparing to, let's say, the Naumburg competition, which you won several years ago, and that's where I first met you. And what are the differences in preparation and atmosphere for you?
I feel the first difference is obviously repertoire here.
Yes.
Everybody is so focused on very short, very narrow choices of Chopin pieces, especially this year. And so for me personally, I have to put a lot of my focuses on seeking for the depth of Chopin's music and really to get the most meaning of it. And for competitions like Naumburg, it's more about the width of repertoire, like how diverse we could present the best of us through the diversity.
Guang,
Yes.
we were talking earlier about your work with Kevin Kenner, who is one of the jurors, and he has made a very interesting performing edition of the Opus 68 number 4 Mazurka, which is a piece that we have not heard yet, of course, in the competition. But we were talking about his studies and what he's discovered as far as texts, and I'd like to know a little bit about what he has shared, what kind of insights you've picked up from him, both as a musician and as a scholar, and how that has possibly influenced you.
Yes, Of course, I think Professor Kenner has changed me a lot during these 2 years. He's a wonderful Chopin scholar, so I got a lot of insight about the stylistic things from him. So I think that's one of the most important thing for this competition. And but in the meantime, he's a wonderful artist who is always trying to be more innovative. He wouldn't restrict how I interpret or play certain passage, and just encourage me to do what I feel like to do. But you know, in the context of Chopin's style.
Right. So he kind of lets you be yourself within the context of the style.
Yeah.
Well, it's like what the composer Virgil Thomson said about Paris. He said that it's not what Paris gives you, it's what Paris does not take away from you. And I love that quote. Antoni, this is your first time playing in this competition.
It is indeed.
Well, it's wonderful. And so I wanted to ask you about the Chopin Nocturne that you started with, Opus 9, number 3. I was noticing in your interpretation that there was a real flexibility in how you were shaping the melodic line, where there was a steady tempo, but also there were a lot of bends and curves on the way, so to speak. And I'd like to ask you about how you arrived at how you played it, especially in the opening pages, because that really held my attention and it really intrigued me.
I'm glad it did. Thank you so much for the compliment.
Yes.
This is a very special piece to me. This is actually the first real work by Chopin that I studied.
Oh, really? When did you first study it?
I think 6 years ago. It was actually the first piece I played at my first lesson, real lesson, with my teacher who I was studying with all the way up until now, preparing me for this competition, Dr. Martin Lobazovic. And it's been growing, you know, every time I'm playing it, it's just, I'm at the same time solidifying a foundation and searching for the freedom. So I think that's why, in some ways, it worked.
I think it definitely worked. Okay, now it's time for our big third ballade powwow. This is the summit meeting on the third ballade. And what I noticed how differently all of you played it. And now, there seem to be two schools of thought about the third ballade, and maybe I'm simplifying when I say that. One school of thought, or at least what I perceive as a school of thought, is that it is a lyrical and it's kind of a lyrical and relatively gentle piece. But then there's the other school where it's a large scale and big and an epic piece. And I heard both of these versions from, well, not all of you, I think, but I wanted to ask you, Alberto, in your approach to the opening section and in how you're shaping the main themes, I kind of noticed, maybe I'm putting thoughts into your head, that there was a real sense of finger legato and bel canto influence, because, you know, Chopin was so influenced by opera. And I know that you have a fantastic recording of Schubert Liszt arrangements. So has bel canto informed your interpretations, do you think?
Yes, I think bel canto, the cantabile, is the most natural way and to sing on the piano, and I think this is the main characteristic of a pianist for the interpretation. I think it's maybe the particular thing that it's getting the interpretation maybe more interesting in the way, like to compare the piano as a voice, you know. And for us pianists, I think it's difficult to express this voicing, because piano from the beginning, in general, it's like a mechanical instrument. So we have like to get a connection between the fingers and the keys. And also, I know that Chopin said that the third finger is like a singer. So, and we have like to get more into this cantabile just with the right hand. So
Yes.
it's not so natural, the approach, but through practice, through also, I think, to listen also to opera, it
Yes.
helps too.
Yes. Okay, and now what about in that second section, that what you call the hobby horse section, boom, bing, gong, bing, gong. I noticed that you were sometimes playing your hands separately, XINGUANG. Maybe
Yes.
you could talk about that.
I think from the view of counterpoint, it's a very complex piece. Maybe I did that just to highlight some certain voice, and that's why I like this ballad the most. I think it's much more complex than people usually think it is.
Ah, that's interesting.
And it's definitely epic for me. It's not very, it's not a salon piece or something as simple like that.
Now, Jack, you played this piece, I think, in a much larger scale. I'm not comparing you, but I'm saying that your approach seemed kind of epic to me, with big dynamic contrasts and big bass lines. And am I reading this correctly, or what was your idea when you first started working on this?
I was trying to really view the piece as a ballad, like the ballad written by Michał. And I treat it as a story. We see different characters, we see as represented in different themes, and we do kind of different transformations, and finally we see the themes come in the climax point. So I really want to bring out this emotional shift through a more dramatic development. And I was also influenced. I really loved a lot of these old recordings, and really appreciate how masters also bring out this extreme contrast.
Well, who were some of these great pianists of the past who you like? It's so much fun talking about dead pianists, isn't it? I think we all enjoy doing that. But let's go around the room. Who do you like? You were telling me earlier who you like, Antoni.
I have my really personal favorite recording of the third ballad is by Ignaz Friedman.
Oh, yeah. Well,
It is-
he has two of them.
Yes, I know there's two of them, and I always wonder which. I don't know them well enough to tell them apart. But I'm whichever one I listen to, I know it's Friedman though, and they're both incredible. But
Although you play it in a much more conversational way than Friedman. It's interesting. You play it your own way.
yeah, I mean, for me, listening to recordings is absolutely not a thing about copying or anything. It's just trying to get the inspiration and see what does it take really to create this sort of
Sound.
captivating sound world. Yeah.
And you, give me a recording.
Yes, I have been listening to Rubinstein for these days. I mean, not to learn his interpretation, but just to have have a deeper feeling of the core of the music from his recording.
And Jack,
I have two favorites for the third ballad, if you are talking about the piece. So the first one was Będę Mojsiewicz.
ooh, very interesting. I like that.
That's probably the most expressive lines I ever heard in a Chopin ballad. Yeah, crazy. The second one was sadly passed away a few years ago, Folksong.
Yes.
He was
what
also
a
super,
wonderful pianist. And he won the 1955 Mazurka Prize in this very competition. And tell me yours.
For me, Rubinstein, for the elegance of the sound and also of the phrasing too, like the most.
Okay, so we just have a few minutes. So I'd like to ask about your choice of pianos, and who would like to jump in first?
Me.
Yeah, you can. Tell me about the Yamaha, how you felt about picking the Yamaha.
Yeah, for me it was a surprise, a discovery, because so far in competitions I never took the Yamaha, because I always get the habit to take Steinway or Fazioli, but nonetheless, in those 15 minutes, that is very short time for every piano, you know, and like to pick up an instrument only for the pieces for the first round. I felt more comfortable, especially with the keyboard, but also with the sound too.
Uh-huh. And you picked the Kawaii, Jack. What led you to choose that? Have you played these before?
Yeah, I play a little bit of Kawaii, so I basically know about these brands. But what really strikes me about Kawaii could bring out is the lyricism. It could bring out super separate but expressive lines, and the songs are really long. I really appreciate this.
Okay, and quickly, I'd like you both to talk about the Steinway.
Yeah, I like the nuance of color that Steinway and actually also Fazioli they can create. You can just do so many things, but physically I'm more used to Steinway. So.
And for me, all of the pianos were incredible and incredibly unique.
Yeah.
And I think there was a place for every pianist to find his or her world, you know. But the Steinway, in a way, I just knew I'd work best with it.
I think it's very special. Yes.
I would like to add very congratulations to all the piano technicians that are doing an amazing work, and also they work at the night. That is not so comfortable time. Yeah.
I agree. Well, we do have to get going, but I'd like to thank all of you for speaking with me and to our worldwide audience. And I'd like to invite all Instagram viewers to please submit questions. We didn't get to any Instagram questions this time, but we hope to in our next Chopin talk. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for your beautiful playing, and I wish you all the best of luck. And let's see what transpires. Take care. Be well. Thank you so much.